I wanted to play roulette with you. Common mistakes of poorly written email copy.
Not including a pain point. Like, I'm amazing at this. I'm amazing.
I know that you really care about making lots of sales. Well, yeah, I do care about my job and I am a salesperson or whatever.
This is a great game. We should play this sometime.
This is a good game. I like it.
Game.
Listen, great having you on the show. Really appreciate your time. Last time when Sarah was on the show, we discussed the SDR work, the KPI, the hiring process, the best practices. This time, considering we have you, Patricia, with us as well, I really wanted to dig deep into an actual outreach, sequence creation, strategy behind it, how to work with ICP, what kind of best practices you guys can share with us, as well as sharing some of the things that we worked on and so on and so forth. Sounds good?
Yeah, 100%. Ah.
And just to give some context here, so I'm working on the second season, and this season is dedicated to appointment setting. And every episode, I'm talking with industry leaders about different parts of the funnel. So we're going to be starting with how to research leads and how to work with spam and how to manage appointments and all of that. And I wanted to streamline our discussion around content behind sequences and sort of right? Because as far as I know, obviously like 50% of the success is how good you create your sequences and templates, right? And so on and so forth. So with that being said, what kind of approach you guys taking into sequence creation? Do you guys want it to personalize considering the ICP, or you're looking more into sort of like creating an omni-channel approach? Do you have any sort of like pattern in terms of if we take a new project, that's what we're going to go on, or this is the best practices with us work so far?
Mm-hmm.
Who can
Happy to start, Sarah. You can start if you'd like. Easy either way.
Go for it.
Deal. From a strategy point of view, given the work that we do at Predictable Revenue, it's very account to account based on how we want to approach strategy. Of course, there's best practices with, no matter what, you want to test your subject lines first and foremost. Are your emails and copy getting opened? You have to run X number of individuals through a sequence to even decide whether the copy is working or not, or your targeting is right. So that's sort of, best practice to start with subject lines. However, we have about a month for each of our accounts where we really dig deep into the client's ICP, and we spend a lot of time building out that ICP. If you get it right the first time, or at least you have a really good hypothesis the first time, it makes the back end of your engagement and your prospecting that much easier. And then all you're doing is iterating on copy. So happy to kind of walk you through how we do that. But there is a goal in mind to really get into a customer focused strategy right out of the gate.
Okay. So it's, in other words, this is more like considering your buying personas, who they are, what their pain points are, and you create content around that, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And usually when we think about kind of ICP, I'm not saying anything about actual value proposition that can be tailored, more about the personalization. Whenever you create a sort of like the database with leads, many people personalize, obviously, first name, company name, title, industry, location. Are there any specific personalization points that you guys kind of notice over the years that work really well besides this point that I've just mentioned?
For sure. And Sarah can probably speak a lot to like actual copy itself. But for us, of course, account to account. One thing we'll personalize is all of the SDRs are trained on how to do research around the accounts. Are they mapping the organization? Do they understand who's working around the person, the ideal persona that you want to target? Are they asking for referrals? Are they referencing relevant content that they've seen, say, on LinkedIn that is relevant to this particular company or account's way they exist in the world? Are they even in tune with what's happening in the market? As an example, I've worked on an account in supply chain, and 2020 was a mess for supply chain. Global supply chains were completely thrown out of whack. So are we temperature checking what's happening within the market and sharing even relevant content that might support, what these people are going through on a day-to-day basis? Are you speaking to what's happening? And for us, are we listening to our own clients and listening to the feedback they're receiving, especially from inbound leads? Outbound and inbound, there's a symmetry that runs, or a synergy, for, to use the buzzword, that works with all of this. Are you asking your clients, okay, so what are your inbound leads telling you about what's going on? Why are they finding you and reaching out to you? And how can you develop that in your outbound copy to say, hey, I know what you're dealing with and I know what you're up against every single day to get your job done. This is what we do to support that. And if you can bring that relevance and sell your expertise along with your solution, it definitely goes a long way to support personalizing just, an account name.
Right. And is this the beginning of the email that you're taking, like starting off the bat with a valid proposition, or it's a more soft touch? So in other words, there's always a debate about whether you should take more soft approach, more value-based approach, or start selling right off the bat, right? Like when you just start, because very often I heard from prospects that they actually don't care what organization you are from, what you want from them, start with call to action, and other people say differently. So where predictable revenue is right now, obviously it depends on the account, but your own preference, let's say subjectively, where you guys are, what do you like the most? More like soft touch approach, or more like aggressive, to the point, short, 2-sentence, value, call to action, bam, and then follow-ups? Where you guys are?
And Sarah, feel free to jump in with some context here too around a lot of it honestly has to do with your ICP. What's the type of person you're talking to? Are they someone that's going to appreciate sales language? Are they someone that wants to have a conversation? Someone in marketing might be more inclined to be conversational and want to be spoken to that way, versus someone in IT probably just wants some really direct messaging that lets you know what you're up to.
What about size of organization? Sorry for interrupting, because I know that many companies are really struggling with enterprise, with reaching out to enterprise grade companies, right? Because obviously spam filters, and obviously because those folks receive a ton of emails. So with regards to reaching out to decision makers, maybe VP level, director level, maybe even C level, but not entirely, but anyhow, enterprise level, 5, 10,000 plus employees, what's any recommendation there that you felt okay, it worked over the years?
Yeah, we rely a lot on organization mapping in that situation, where we want to understand who is involved in decision making, and then how do we best target them? Are we asking for referrals? Because sometimes referrals is just the best way to get a champion to get you through the front door with someone. Or what gatekeepers are you up against, and how do they want to be spoken to? So a director might be having, the VP might be saying to the director, hey, source some vendors for me. And that's information you have to figure out as you go. So are you giving them a direct call to action? This is exactly what I do. And, this is exactly what our solution does. And this is how we support you. Or are you simply saying, hey, are you managing a team that's dealing with X, Y, and Z? How can we support the team? Or are you managing individuals who are running up against this? Or in a C level, it might simply just be, hi, I just don't know who the best person to reach out to is. Can you let me know who on your team is responsible for this? So being mindful of who you're talking to, and where in the organization their pain points lie, and especially if they have a team that they're managing, you want to be cognizant of what the manager has to do if they're not necessarily in the weeds with the person or with, the problems every day.
Right. Sarah, do you have any good example on top of your head with regards to any recent campaign that you did, or with this example?
Yeah. So I think something that I found to be a relatively universal fact is that leading with a value proposition, so what my company does to solve your problem, is less important than identifying if that problem exists. Going with the assumption that they have a problem and then saying hey, I solve your problem by doing X, is not useful unless that person has that problem. So rather, as Patricia said, figuring out what are the types of day-to-day issues that role or roles around them are facing, and then rather try to dig into that in your messaging. So an approach that has worked really, really well for me, and it is pretty short and snappy and to the point. It's four lines, including the greeting and the call to action. But it's one that Beck Holland sort of coined, and it's the coming in with the personalization piece. So as Patricia mentioned, something that you found on LinkedIn that's relevant. Relevance doesn't mean we went to the same university, or I see that you posted something on LinkedIn today. It means something relevant to the pain that you can solve. So for instance, if we're speaking as predictable revenue and we help people solve their problems with outbound, if somebody says outbound is so hard because of XYZ, that becomes a good post to kind of reference. And you say hey, Patricia, I saw you posted that thing about outbound being hard. We do stuff with outbound. That's true relevance and connection there. So yeah, personalization in that first little chunk with something truly relevant. And then a what if question that encapsulates your value proposition. So instead of saying like, I'm going to solve your problem by doing XYZ, you say, what if there was a solution to your problem like this? Or what if this type of thing could solve this type of problem? So I'm framing it as, I'm assuming you might have this problem. What if we could solve it, rather than you have this problem, I'm going to solve it, give me your money. So yeah, that particular first email template has worked really, really well for me.
Interesting thing about the CTAs, and let me know what you guys think of this, but there was a best practice for years now that you don't need to offer like a very vague like call to action. For example, like, let me know if you're interested, or sort of like, tell me what you think, right? Because usually people don't respond that, but you need to be giving you them two options, like, let's get a call, or let me know your feedback, or for example, let's have a call at that day or something, or be very like pushy to the point. Tell me whether you're available Thursday, 2 p.m. or something, right? Is it still work? Does it still work? Because I know that sometimes people feel that to be more, that approach to be very aggressive in a way. So that's why they more like wanted to be distant about this approach, saying that, whoa, you wanted a call right now? You didn't give me enough information about your organization, and now you wanted to have a call. So where you guys are with this, do you need to be more to the point and offer some exact timing, exact call to action, or you first need to be more like, tell me if you want me to send more information or interested, and then get them on the call during follow-ups, or offer the call or offer the trial or whatever right off the first email? Sarah, what do you think? What worked for you better?
Yeah, so this, like so many things in outbound, there is no right or wrong answer. It completely depends, again, on who you're targeting, what industry you're targeting, how often these people are prospected. If you're one of 100 people in their inbox saying, talk to me on Thursday, it's not going to go anywhere. But if you're speaking to somebody that's not heavily prospected, it may actually work to say like, how's your calendar on this day? I found that with the soft ask being more around still looking for some type of like concrete answer from them, not necessarily on like if they can meet on Thursday, but on if this is a priority for them, or if this is something that makes sense to continue the conversation about. That type of soft call to action has worked really well for me. So instead of going like, let me know what you think, because what do you really want from them? Like, do you want to know what they think about this email? No, you want to talk to them about it. You say like, is this a priority for you? Are you experiencing this that I've mentioned? Does your team use spreadsheets to manage instead of an internal tool if we're trying to sell them something better than spreadsheets? It's a soft ask because you're not asking for their time, but it's like you're asking for a particular reason because you want to gain more context and continue the conversation. Let me know your thoughts. I don't know if that really continues the conversation. I've heard of using thoughts as like a bumper email. So saying like thoughts on my last email. But I don't know that I think thoughts is like too soft, and there's a kind of happy medium. But then on the other side, I have used a more direct ask actually when using that same Beck Holland template, where she says to say, so you have your what if value prop, what if we could solve X problem? And then she says, give me a chance to unpack that on a quick call. How's your calendar this day? And that, again, it's like not quite hard as in like you owe me your time, but it's like, I think I have more value for you. Give me a chance to show it to you. And because you have shown personalization and then how you can solve a particular problem that they care about, they're more likely to give you that hard ask. Whereas if you go, fully automated marketing style email that they open and anybody can open these and you look at them and it's not for you. You know that it's been sent to 1,000 people. And then they say like, let's schedule a time for Thursday. I'm like, I don't know you. You don't know me. Who are you? I don't know what this is. I don't want to give you my time. So if you personalize it really well, hard ask works better. You're not going to personalize it, maybe a bit of a softer ask, but yeah, still a kind of direct soft ask.
Patricia,
what do you think, Patricia?
What do you think of this, Patricia?
Completely agree with Sarah. Like across the board, we never have one set way of of asking for time. Another thing that oddly enough has worked for a lot of people is asking to put a placeholder in someone's calendar. It gives you an opportunity to continue following up. Does it always have the best conversion rate? It depends. But one thing is like, hey, I'd love to put a placeholder in your calendar for 2 weeks from now. Or if you know, as an example, that someone's going through a really busy season, you know that about the market that you're prospecting into, recognizing, I know your time right now is incredibly tight. I would love to put a placeholder in your calendar for a month out when you know things are going to slow down. And then that gives you an opportunity to build the conversation leading up to that call. So that person does feel more familiarized with you. One thing we spend a lot of time coaching SDRs on is like opening a conversation. So even just in your email copy saying, I would just love to start a conversation about this. It's an ask for involvement without an ask necessarily for someone to write you a novel about their thoughts or stuff like that. So it does give you an opportunity to create dialogue. And then you can start working towards a more hard ask as people kind of work through the cadence, if you're not getting a direct hit from somebody. And another thing we focus on is getting a no. Making sure if someone isn't giving you a yes, get a firm no and why. And that still is a response that you can then counter with something, is that, I noticed this person on your team and perhaps it's offering a name, and are they better to reach out to? Is this not relevant? Why? Is it a timing issue? If you can get a no, you can typically get some feedback there as well. So that's another piece too, is always trying to look for some response to get some value from that prospect.
That's a great advice. I know that many SDRs, they don't follow up on the negative responses. Obviously, if someone gonna say you, like send a F word, that you're not probably,
off,
you're not gonna probably follow up with them. But if once someone, hey Michael, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, then it's better to follow up. Say, John, is it a wrong timing or a budget thing? Let me know if I can follow up with you later on, right? And if they tell you what the reason is, I usually give you that. Even if it's 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, it's still additional value to you, and you can still keep them in the book and then follow up later on. Patricia, do you include value proposition in your first email, or is it sort of like more like a pain point statement? That's it, without any elaborate value proposition?
We often like to counter a pain point with a value prop because you want to recognize, you probably are experiencing this. And to Sarah's point, with the Beck-Holland method, it's like, can you imagine, think forward thinking what your life would be like if you weren't experiencing this pain point? And this is how we can offer that solution. It gives someone the ability to picture, their day to day without that pain point. So I think it's always important to provide value, but you don't necessarily just want to sell someone on the fact that you do something. You want to prove to them the value actually has to do with your day to day experience in your role. And we do spend a lot of time when we, discuss copy with our clients. We spend a lot of time talking about pain points and what's really grinding someone's gears. Because if you're able to really attach that or attach, industry knowledge or expertise, that's another great place to start. Is if you can offer a little in exchange for someone's time. I'd love to connect you with a specialist on my team that actually works directly with this, or put this solution together from this perspective, which happens to be their perspective. The value might actually be who on your team can help them. Are you selling the meeting? The person wants to actually connect with the person on the other end. So selling your own expertise as a way to say, hey, I'm going to give you value on this, discovery call, regardless of whether we're a fit, there's still value for you to talk to us. It's not an ego-based thing. It's simply, we want you to know that you're going to get something out of your time spent, and being respectful of the fact that you are taking time from someone's day.
All right. For those who are not familiar with Beck-Holland's concept, can you elaborate where to find what is it about? Give more information. Sarah, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can find it super easily if you just Google Beck-Holland personalization at scale. She's spoken about it in a couple of different settings. There's a couple of different videos. The one that I learned all of this from was her video with Scott Barker of Sales Hacker. So if you go Beck-Holland, Scott Barker, personalization at scale, she breaks it down crystal clear, step by step, templates, how to pick what you use for personalization. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to attach that at the bottom of this. So talking about value proposition, you guys onboard clients all the time. are there any specific kind of sides of the value proposition, or what are you specifically looking at when you analyze value proposition? Is it the case studies that they have and what they do for the customer, or it's more about their product? Can you just talk on a high level about the process in general, as well as what do you emphasize or what do you specifically focus on when you kind of investigate value proposition? Trisha, do you want to take this one or?
Yeah, for sure. So we do spend a lot of time on what we call our market fit or niche workshop. That's where we spend a lot of our time discovering our client's customer. We ask them to take their product or solution hat off, put your customer hat on. And what that does is, everyone thinks they have the best solution. You have to, in order to sell your own solution, you have to think you're the best. And while that might be true, your prospect doesn't know that. And so we actually do spend a lot of time talking about what are key differentiators in your value prop, because we have to prove why, especially in a saturated market, that does happen where things are highly saturated. What makes you different and what makes you stand out? And that's a huge piece of where value comes from, which is we stand firm and we can offer something that someone else might not necessarily excel at. Is that industry expertise knowledge? Is that a solution that does something that no one else can do? And then selling that to the pain point, which is, essentially the value here is we really do want to engage with what you're doing and making your life easier. Everyone can say they have great customer service. That's across the board what everyone says. What does that actually mean? Right. Or, my solution alleviates this. Well, how does it actually do that? And providing people that clear picture of the value that it actually brings to them. So we ask a lot of key questions. We break it down in different verticals around, each persona. Why does their job exist? What is the goal of their job even existing? There is an existential piece to all of that. Right. What are they doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure they're achieving that goal? There's integrity in what they want to do. And what are they experiencing that pain? And then we build the value into all of that. And the value proposition is really intricately worked into attacking all of those pieces and then offering something that is really different and unique, that if it exists. And if it doesn't, you push people to offer, can you get case studies for us? What is your, marketing material that we can, speak to or share? What are people engaging with in your content on your own website? Asking all those key questions to really pull that knowledge from your own client to really speak to the customer, especially if they have a great inbound funnel. That's a huge bank of resources.
Yeah. Well, for those agencies that are in lead generation business or just freelance SDRs or salespeople that works with clients, what would you recommend, guys, for those that work with customers who have almost zero content out there, almost no case studies, nothing? They drove their sales through referral and word of mouth. They have zero. How do you guys create a value proposition, and how do you help them to package their content by creating additional collaterals, or it's more about just getting on the call with them so they can pitch you and then sort of just working off what you have and that's it? Or you kind of don't work with those customers that have very limited resources in terms of their content out there?
We definitely work with those clients. There is a piece of, invest in it, invest in building that collateral. If you have a lot of word of mouth referrals and that's how you're getting inbound leads, that's a lot of people to talk to. That's a lot of people to interview. Can you build case studies? Can we name drop in our content? We work with so-and-so with their permission to name drop.
Right.
If you're able to give a firm example of someone that you've supported and how, even a simple name drop is enough to potentially get your foot in the door while you're working on building that collateral. It's a piece that you do have to put resources in and focus on. And one thing we can do is, as we're testing the market, as we're learning about, your prospects, as we're outbounding for lack of a better word, while we're prospecting, we can support, that building of material by saying, hey, this is what your market is telling us. These are what the prospects are telling us. And there is that, relationship around sales has to talk to marketing. Marketing has to talk to sales. Inbound and outbound have to talk to each other. AEs, what are you hearing on the phone when you get people on discovery calls? That all has to speak to each other. And we focus a lot on the team component around, are our SDRs speaking to the client, letting them know what objections are we hearing? How are we handling it? All of that can be built into content as you go. And oftentimes what we see happen is those clients that might be sort of newer to their space, they will update websites and update, content and build case study based on our findings. It might be a slower process than it would be for someone who's very well established in their market. but the learnings are so powerful, regardless of whether you get a no, it's still a learning and you can still work with that.
Right. Sarah, what is the perfect client setup in terms of their content? What do they need to have when you analyze successful campaigns opposed to not successful campaigns?
That's a good question. And I think content can kind of be indicative of a couple of different things. Like you can have a ton of content and it not be useful, or you can have like one or two great pieces of content that really drive results. And it depends on kind of how you look at content. So you could have somebody who's building content that is like value first, I would say is always like the most beneficial content that you could use, because Patricia mentioned that one of the things that you're selling is your subject matter expertise in the space that you're trying to sell your prospect on. So if you can give them something that doesn't ask them to pay money, but they get some value out of it, it's like a step-by-step on how your company solves this small problem in this space, or it's like an interview with someone else who is solving the type of problems that they're solving, stuff like that, or stuff like this. If we're selling sales expertise and we're sharing our knowledge, this is great content because it builds like trust in your expertise. It builds brand awareness, and it like warms prospects to the idea of you because you haven't asked for something in return. So that type of content, if you can share those types of collateral kind of throughout the prospecting, throughout the cadence or sequence, that can be really, really useful. And then on the other side, collateral that shows kind of exactly how you did something. Because I think especially these days with all the access that people have to information and the internet and all of that, people don't necessarily want to have to rely on having so many calls with the salesperson to understand how they're going to help. They'd rather understand that sooner in the process. So like if you have a case study and you can break down, of course you can't give away your like trade secrets, your industry secrets, but if you can break down how exactly you helped and then what tangible results you produced for that client, that type of content or that type of collateral is also going to be super vital. So if you could only, spend a small amount of resources on building collateral, if those are the two, you can build like something super value-based for your clients that's going to help them achieve something or solve a pain for nothing. That's great for like driving inbound and then also driving trust that you need to be able to get that outbound meeting. And then on the other side, really clear business impact that you've provided a client like them that they can see themselves in. That would be like ideal. If you could only have two things, I'd say that would make, those two things would be perfect.
Back in the day, I've talked with this agency owner and we were discussing case studies, and we got to the point where we realized that if you invest in case studies and you usually produce a lot of those case studies, it's irrelevant because as long as those case studies are in the same category, they are irrelevant, right? So if you create one case study per category or per industry that you can refer to, and you can create 5 in different industries, that's enough, right? You don't need to invest more into multiplying that, creating like 150 case studies, right? Because then you cannot use that, right? And at the same time, you can create more customer testimonial, that shows you how successful you are, right? But the point is that having that value-based industry expertise and the process that you took to get to that point is very valuable. And honestly, if you even share 1 or 2 trade secrets, at the end of the day, it's about the execution, right? I mean, every next company would probably kind of have different customer support, different development, different pricing model, right? So at the end of the day, there are so many variables in that process. Then if you can share 1 or 2 that were there, that really make the difference to the customer, then why not, right? You touch base on the using collaterals and using case studies and using additional references through your sequence with follow-up. So when do you start adding those external links? When do you guys think that it's best to start adding either attachments or links, or what's the best process when you think in terms of email livability, in terms of actually creating value? sorry, Patricia, maybe you can speak to this in terms of like when you look at the sequence, when do you guys usually start adding links? Right of the second email or below that?
I was going to say Sarah actually is probably very.
Oh, okay. Let's talk, Sarah.
But I don't
Sarah,
mind.
talk
No,
to
not at
this.
all.
Talk to this.
We were just chatting about this the other day, her and I.
Sarah, can you take this one?
Sure.
What?
Yeah, I'm sure we both got kind of like the two sides of predictable revenues experience. So yeah, I'll go quickly and we'll touch on Patricia's as well. I find that the one thing I know for certain is that the first email is not the place for collateral. Other than that, none of it is black or white, as with everything else in outbound. I think the reason that is because it does impact your deliverability. So you want to give yourself the best shot of actually showing up in that inbox. Attaching links and PDFs and that kind of stuff is not going to give you that. So I like to think of it as like a continuation of the story, or like building color in every additional email. So if that first email is that really like short and sweet, if you've got this pain problem, what if we could solve it? Then the next one is maybe where I elaborate a little more on how we solve it, or the types of clients that we've helped that look like this prospect. And maybe that's the time for a case study, or it's time to say, like, if you are experiencing this, we've built this ebook on solving it. Maybe you'd find some value in it, or whatever. So if you can think of each subsequent email, each follow-up as adding color to that story, making it a more complete story, so that by the end of the sequence, they really understand like your voice as a company, how you help people, the value that you bring, and how. So however you can kind of slot in your collateral in those follow-ups, but I would say just not email one and then test it from there.
Perfect. How many follow-ups per sequence when we talk about email sequence in general? 3, 5, 7, 9 until the answer. What's the best practice? Patricia, what's your number? Like, what's your best number right now? I mean, let's see across the board, right? Like, what's the favorite optimal?
Between 5 and 9, I would say.
5 and 9. Okay.
Between that zone.
Sorry,
you have to include calls and whatnot.
Right. Well, let's say, so without calls, it's 5, 9 emails basically, right?
Yeah.
Sarah, what's your number?
Yeah. So this, again, it's worth really experimenting, like kind of per industry, because we've done some experimentation that shows that the optimal can be within 3 and 5 because people just don't answer after the 5th.
Right.
But that's like within one industry or one buyer persona. You might be targeting somebody that is more difficult to get a hold of, in which case don't give up after the third, fourth touch in a sequence. But that's where kind of tracking your data within like something like outreach or something like Salesforce is really important, because you can start to see from which step did the meetings come. And if you never get anything from beyond touch 8, why are you spending the next 2 weeks continuing on after that? It's not worth it. Kind of condense that sequence and see if you can increase further your conversion in those first 8 touches. So I'd say that's where it's really important to kind of look at the metrics and understand where in the sequence your meetings are coming from. And that'll give you a really strong indication of how many emails you should put in there.
I agree with you guys, because it's always better to add one extra email and then cut it short, rather than just get it at 3 or 4, and then maybe you would be more successful with the 5, right? When we looked at some of our numbers, we've saw that either it should be under 5, and that when we see the best result, because then there's a lot of negativity coming to the campaign, or after the 9th or more, because it starts getting funny, right? Like people starts like thinking that this is just a kind of funny campaign, right? So they start just responding because they start enjoying this, right? If you're not reported, right? And if you can add some, funny jokes or whatever at the end. By the way, in terms of the sequence writing, again, that might be different, but while I'm on the point, which language to use? Direct, indirect, more kind of storytelling like? I very often receive a bunch of emails when people start, making jokes right off the bat, right? And I don't usually like that. And is it just me personal, or that typically people they start receiving too many jokes, so they don't like that? what obviously depending on the audience, right? You're not gonna target VP of marketing or VP of sales in enterprise level organization with some jokes or would. So where you are, Patricia, can you speak to this? Do you think that it's
we normally save the jovial speak, if you will, to sort of the end, which is kind of like throw me a bone, like, or add something funny. It's me again. Here I am.
Right.
Keeping in mind also who you're prospecting.
Yeah.
But usually at that point, the prospect, if they've received enough material, they're not surprised for you to be like, it's me knocking on your door again. Hi, here I am. They're more receptive usually at that point to a joke. And if you can say, hey, just tell me to bugger off. Oftentimes that's where we see a lot of responses is a bumper email, which is this relevant to you? Or down the line, which is like, hey, just let me know if you want me to bugger off. And oftentimes, a lot of times people are like, sorry, people apologize. I'm like, sorry, I didn't see your email, or so sorry, it's been so busy. And it's amazing how polite people can be when you feel like they're going, oh man, I should have replied, when they realize it is a human on the other end. You do want people to understand that you are there to speak to them if you've built your copy, in a good way. So I find closer to the end, if you can make a joke, a lot of people will come around with an apology and, hey, sorry, I was busy,
Okay.
would love to chat, or not relevant.
Sorry, do you take the same approach?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be like throwing in my memes in my first couple of emails. We did actually have, it's funny that you brought this up, because we had an SDR who used to work for us who like gave it a go.
Yeah.
And he was like adamant. He was like, it's going to work because the memes are funny. Like, you wait and you see how well this campaign goes. And I think it was like, honestly, days after that Jeremy Donovan of Salesforce put like one of his statistics that have like 5 million emails surveyed. So it's like ultimate fact that was like, SDRs, if you put a meme in your email, it's like 76% lower response rate or something. And it was pretty funny. So I definitely, I'm not saying anything too like witty in my first couple of emails. I think also because I don't want to waste the space. Like, I'm aware of the fact that the longer the email, the less likely people are to get to the bottom. There's all sorts of little kind of psychological stuff about the way people read emails, and specifically sales emails, where they like look at if you have your phone open, your email open, before you click into the email, you can see the subject line and then a portion of the first line. So that is really important, because if they can tell it's salesy, they won't even open it. So that's really important. And then once they open the email, they read the first line to try to get a sense of what you are reaching out to them for. And then they jump to the end to see what you're asking. So if your first line is not compelling, and then they jump to the bottom and see you say like, can we meet on Thursday?
Right.
Not even going to read the middle. So for me, I would be afraid that I would waste some of that precious word space with a joke. Whereas if I can get them in with that personalization piece, like just facts, just really clear and direct, then maybe they'll look at that CTA and be like, she did know exactly who I am and what I need. Maybe I'll go back and read the middle. But absolutely, I definitely, at the end of all my sequences, I've got like a last one email, or a breakup email, as we call it. And you can honestly throw anything in there, and tons of people respond being like, ha ha ha, like this one works.
Or
like,
T-Rex,
so,
right? Or T-Rex. I always like hated the T-Rex. It was like, like the T-Rex joke. No, it's like, hey, I haven't heard from you. Is it like you're not interested, or like T-Rex is chasing you? Let me know because we're getting war or something. And people are like, ha ha ha, T-Rex caught me up, blah 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 blah, right? And it's like, I was like, okay, it's not funny at all.
No, I think that had a very narrow window. Someone posted something about that on LinkedIn recently, being like, remember when this was all the rage, where people would go like, let me know, is it A, B, C, or D? And yeah, you're right. One of them is like, I've fallen in a hole and like need help getting pulled out of the hole. Ha ha. And I think all of these sort of like bad, trendy things have a very short shelf life. But that being said, humor, and don't go for that, because the fact that you and I both know this T-Rex joke and what that looks like means that if anybody listening right now sends that to anybody, they probably already have gotten an email like that, and it's not new, it's not fresh, it's not cute. But something funny can work.
I understand, like, using the content, working with value proposition, building creative, and that's fair enough for the companies that have a product, or the companies that have a very nice, unique value proposition. What if I am an MSP? What if I am a software developer? What if I am an IT consulting company? Talk to me about this. I mean, you guys probably had several campaigns with these type of organizations. When you have exaggerated market, everyone have the same value proposition. What do I do? Let's kind of brainstorm. What is the best strategy that I can take? Should I be funny at least because people already receive thousands of emails like this? Or should I be like, I don't know, explaining the case studies? Is there any campaign that you guys did in the past for any of these industries that actually worked? Can you talk to this? Sarah, Patricia, who would take the lead of this?
Yeah.
All right, Patricia going to take the lead. Okay,
yeah.
That's the harder one, Patricia.
You know what? Like, and it's just full honesty. It's harder. It's just harder. Be prepared that it's a harder space. If your space is saturated, you have an uphill battle. However, being creative helps, and sell the meeting, sell the time that person and the value that person is going to get out of talking with you. Because oftentimes it's great to just throw solutions at somebody or throw, this is relevant because you do this. That's great. Like you say, they hear it all the time. But be inquisitive and investigate. And even if it's as simple as, I would just love to talk to you to understand your thoughts on, not the use of the thoughts, but understand your experience of X, Y, and Z, whether it's asking for time to ask them questions or investigate. You have time to let me interview you. If nothing else, you're just bringing something new to the conversation. And it's not a bait and switch. It's general curiosity. It's genuine curiosity. It's going, hey, I recognize you probably hear from a lot of people in this space. What I would like to do is actually better understand what you're experiencing. And it gives the person a place to go have a conversation. And maybe you really just have to sell the time in the meeting and sell your industry knowledge and experience. I would suggest starting with that. Start with this is what we actually have to offer you when it comes to what you'll learn and what we want to learn from you, and have a genuine conversation. Because I feel like that's the piece that is often missed in a lot of these saturated markets is I actually just want to learn from you, and you have experience and you have expertise in your own field. What can I learn from you? And a lot of people really are genuinely interested in sharing. So it's worth actually wanting to ask for someone's conversation and time. And if that converts, your pipeline, it might take a little bit more time. Your sales cycle might be longer, but if nothing else, it builds trust, it builds clout, and it might open the door for you down the road when you're networking in that industry where someone said, hey, I actually had a really great conversation with this person from this company. It didn't feel like a sales pitch.
Right.
That's an approach I would start with.
Would adding a free perk, for example, like a free consultation or a trial or an assessment, is it still working, or too many people are giving away some of the free complimentary stuff, let's say? Sorry, did adding sort of like a complimentary assessment or a consultation work for you for any of the campaign that you had in the past?
We have had it work. However, and I know Sarah, probably you have some thoughts on this too. The time when it did work is when we weren't asking for someone to say do a survey, because they have to go out of their way. They got to click stuff. It's time out of their day. What am I getting out of this? What actually worked for us was asking for a conversation where we could uncover these things on a call. It wasn't I don't need you to click through 7 hyperlinks to get to a Survey Monkey survey and fill it in and let me know. The other thing we have worked with for clients is, if you have an assessment on your website that inbound leads are coming in through, taking those warmer leads and using them in outbound campaigns and acknowledging that they have
registered,
worked with your content.
Right.
Yeah. But I do want to hear Sarah's thoughts on this, because I feel it's important.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on the really saturated market type, or those industries where you are the same as all of your competitors. I think there's a couple of things you have to think about if you want to try outbound, if you're one of those companies. So there's a couple of reasons that it's difficult. One is that you have thousands of competitors and all of you do the same thing. The other reason is that if you are one of these types of companies in that type of space, what you offer is really broad, because you are trying to sort of cover all your bases and offer more than the next guy. And what that means is that you can do 100 things. If we're thinking of a DevOps company, most of them can build you an app, but they can do like Internet of Things and analytics and all these different things where there's no way that you can say all of the things that they do in that first email without it being clearly just a mass email. So one of the ways to potentially try to kind of, mitigate some of that is to get really, really specific. So forget all of the thousands of things that you do, just that one thing, the analytics part, say, if we're, one of these data type companies, the analytics. Okay, analytics, every department wants analytics, but what type of analytics are we really good at and who would really like that kind? I don't know, the tech persona at a small company that doesn't have their own internal way of looking at these things. Okay, so now all of a sudden we're really niche and we help small companies that are growing before they can hire their own CTO with their analytics, something like that. So basically what you've got to do is find a way to find a niche. Or like if you are building apps, you can build an app for literally anybody in the whole world. They just need a pulse. But if you can say like, who doesn't have app DevOps people like honing in on them all the time, but need apps? Who are like the newly digitizing industries that potentially are going to need an app built for them? I don't know. Let's like find that type of company. It's a dentist, say. It's a small dentist chain that's looking to grow. Now I'm the DevOps guy for a dentist. And that's like a whole narrower space than if you are the DevOps guy for the world.
Find the need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who needs you? Find the need.
Yeah, excellent. Being domain expert, that's huge in this competitor, right? For example, researching a technology that you use. For example, I'm like, I don't know, my technology was built on PHP or whatever, right? To say, hey, we developed like dentist software in PHP, right? And that's super relevant. Then you're not like just another general broad DevOps company, right? You're very specific.
And even beyond that, I don't think you can even say to the dentist, we developed dentist software, because that dentist has been doing his job just fine with no software for the past 50 years. So you need to get even narrower and say like, hey, doesn't it suck when your like assistant goes on maternity leave and no one can organize your appointments or whatever? And it's like,
let us develop a software for you,
off of that and onto this. Like, so not only what do we do and what pain does that solve, but like he's already got a solution for that pain because he's been doing it for 30 years. So how is this solution going to make his day-to-day better in a really tangible way?
Yeah. While we still have a few minutes, I wanted to play roulette with you. So common mistakes of poorly written email copy. And we go one by one, okay? I start with huge email copy, like massive email, no one reads, no one wants. Sarah, you're next. Let's go like Sarah, Patricia, and then me again. Let's do it like a few rounds. Who gonna lose? Okay, Sarah, your turn.
I'm gonna say when they're really assumptive about going to give them the time. Basically, they're like, cool, so we're gonna talk this day. And I'm like, slow down.
Yeah. Patricia.
Not including a pain point. Just being like, I'm amazing and this is why I'm amazing.
Yeah. That's a good one. Okay. Obviously, I'm going to start with some basic ones. Okay, just some basics, fundamentals, like, children ones. For example, introducing yourself in the very beginning of the email. Like, hey, I'm Michael. I'm with this organization, blah, blah, blah. No one cares, right? So you're probably not going to introduce yourself.
Nice.
Sarah?
Oh, I just had one. What was it? Oh, no. Oh, I was just thinking of it. And then that was a really good one.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody just did it to me recently and it was really, really bad. But yes. Well, that's the point. They did it to me. Reaching out to an SDR to prospect them as if that poor SDR can even touch the budget with a 10-foot barge pole. Like, who are you reaching out to? Are they the decision maker? If you're not reaching to the decision maker, it better be a referral, because I don't know where you think I'm going to get the money from to buy your product. So reaching out to the wrong person, not knowing what their role is.
That's a good one. Yeah. Tricia?
I would say not spacing their emails enough.
Oh my God.
If you're hitting someone with 5 emails in 1 week.
Oh my God. Spacing? Yeah. You're spacing the emails in terms of like their schedule, right?
But also literally inside too, yeah.
Literally spacing the emails.
Spacing and spacing, yeah.
Like, did you receive emails that like every sentence is spaced and then it's like space? I cannot read this. I literally wanted to close and delete the email, right?
Mm-hmm. Or there's like an asterisk and then a bullet point and then a smiley face and then an arrow. And it's just like...
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to mention a very terrible one. like a very terrible one that probably every junior SDR did in the past. I did that. You probably guys did it as well. Missing variables. When you miss a variable, so instead of first name, you're gonna write a first name, like hi first name without actual right. When you set up a software, you just doing the job and you start this campaign and you have multiple campaigns, you're probably gonna miss one. Either the industry name, we've all done that, but that's so terrible. Or if your variable was changed and then the first names or the company names are replaced, right? And that's just bad, right? But that happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, guys, let's do another one. Sarah, anything else?
Okay, there was one that came to mind, and it's where people try to like appeal to your hubris or something. So I've had people they'll reach out to me and they'll be like, I know that you really care about making lots of sales because you're a really good salesperson and you want to be good at your job. And it's like this sort of like, it's like a little bit hurtful or something. I don't know. It's like a strange approach where they're trying to make me, they're like guilting me into saying yes, because I'm like, well, yeah, I do care about my job and I am a salesperson or whatever. But it's like, no. So weird.
That's a good one. All right. Patricia, your last one. Anything that comes to mind?
I don't know if this is something that is necessarily a sales thing, but when someone in their subject line will add as if you have replied, like they've already written to you and
you don't approve this? You don't approve this? No?
I don't know. It bugs me when I receive it. When I see that someone's like in the subject line, it's like as if, oh, did I actually reply to them? And I open it and I'm like, no, man, blast. I opened it and that frustrates me. And I'm like, no, I'm not replying to you because you assumed I replied. It's a personal, it really grinds my gears.
That's like a real bait and switch for me. Yeah.
It's a bait and switch. Yeah. It feels dishonest.
Yeah, it does. And you can't start a business interaction like that. Like if that's you putting your best foot forward, not a good, doesn't bode well for the rest of the engagement, I think.
And is it for follow-up as well, or just for the intro email, or for the entire sequence? You can't use the R.
I'm okay if they reply to their own email. That's fine. That's normal. Like if they send me an email with a subject line saying like, hey, Patricia, and then the next time I reply to my own email, it's going to say RE, hey, Patricia. Yeah. But if you start the first email with an RE so that they think maybe they emailed you or they responded at some point, the fake RE.
The fake RE. Yeah. It really bugs me.
Are there many sequences or emails that you guys receive or saw that have that fake component in them? Are there any examples of like really like beside the RE? What else? What do usually people do with those?
Like sometimes a fake referral.
Like fake referral.
Seen a fake referral for sure, where I'm like, I know for a fact that you were not referred because I'm at a startup and I sit across the like room and he would have just told me with his mouth. But so the fake referral is the only other fake thing I think I've experienced. But Patricia, you're going to say something.
Oh, no. I was just going to say things like sometimes people refer to like a physical quantity of something. Like, oh, I saw you had sales quota of whatever. And you're like, there's no way you would know this. So I know you're just shooting in the dark here. It's the assumption, especially if it's a quantitative, like an actual number, that really, really bothers me. I'm realizing I have all of these little idiosyncrasies that I never really thought. I have to spend some time reflecting on this. This is a great game. We should play this sometime.
This is a good game. I like it.
Game. We'll bring this to what's working Wednesday.
Yeah.
Well, that's another round then. I mean, I hate when people say, I checked your website or you have impressive LinkedIn profile or something like that. It's so generic.
It's like not even relevant. It's just like
you have an amazing
I looked
website.
at your LinkedIn and I see you are a salesperson and
you're a very successful person. Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Guys, listen, appreciate you taking the time. We should definitely start with the game, finish with the game, or basically have another session, just several games and just go one by one. That's funny.
A little vent.
But then we're probably going to need a prize for the next time. Okay, so we're probably going to get some fun from Colin. So I'm going to negotiate with Colin some prize for you guys. Who wins then get additional extra day off or something, right?
Nice.
Yeah? Awesome.
Deal.
All right. It's been great having you on the show. It's been a blast. I really appreciate you sharing all this and spending your time with me. And I'm looking forward to having you guys on the season 3 next season or next year or whatever. But I'm going to definitely shoot an email for the next session. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Having us.
All right. Take care now. Cheers.
Bye.